Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Shadow of the Erdtree. Today I'm set up with a very simple build to showcase something that's being slept on a little bit too much in this DLC. And it's this, the new Deflecting Hardtear for your Wondrous Physic. Despite the fact that this will come from the first furnace golem you'll kill in the opening area, this is comically strong. And I recommend you pay attention to this if you find the DLC difficult. This can open up a whole other way to play that was introduced in Elden Ring originally, sure, but with this, it becomes so much more viable and in fact, insane. As you can see, I'm absolutely devastating humanoid enemies with ease where I have this complete control. I'm either performing a basic block and nullifying the damage and then just punishing with a potent guard counter, or I'm essentially zeroing that attack. By timing my block correctly, I'm enhancing my damage for the guard counter, nearly nullifying the stamina cost of the block, and basically becoming an iron wall. Now, obviously with my setup, I've lent into that with an incredible new weapon suited to guard counters specifically, but then the usual stuff of stats and talismans and so on. To keep it simple, I just think this is really easy and really effective. I think it'll be a key way for people to beat things that are challenging them right now, like maybe the final boss of the DLC as an obvious example. So let's start from the basics and get into the details of this quickly. If for some reason you are unaware of what a guard counter is and how it works exactly, you basically take a hit while blocking, then do a heavy attack and you perform this attack. With this weapon, I get a unique recovery to perform a unique attack, but with a normal weapon, that's more what it looks like. You get a stagger, it leads into a very consistent free critical against weaker enemies like this. Usually the damage isn't insane, but obviously it's a really quick and effective punish, which in the DLC where we're facing enemies that, you know, have smaller windows, smaller punish windows in the middle of a fight, letting them hit me once or twice or 3 times and then going for the guard counter as they finish their combo usually results in a very quick and effective punish. Naturally then, guard countering is tied to having a shield up and blocking, but don't forget that if you two-hand a weapon, most of the time you'll be able to block, and guard counters are still entirely possible when you're blocking with a weapon like so. So that opens up a new range of opportunities, especially with that crystal tier in mind. So let's talk about it. The Deflecting Hardtear will enhance your guard. This means that damage negation and guard poise is greatly increased in the moment you activate the guard. So what that means specifically while it's active is that in that moment where I begin the guard, I get that boost. And when I successfully land the counter by blocking right as I'm about to be hit, as if I've landed a parry, that's when I get that big juiced up effect from the tier. Now what's great about blocking instead of parrying is that if you try to counter with the guard too early, who cares? What's going to happen now is you're still going to be blocking. So you're going to block the damage, reduce it or nullify it. Obviously though, if you do time it right, you get that massive boost to the protection of the block, nullifying the damage completely in many cases, even against the bigger enemies. This concept is very comparable to Sekiro's counter system, where you press block at the right moment, right as the blows are about to land like a normal parry, and then you deflect the blow. How do you know that you've successfully perfect guarded and triggered this deflecting tier? Well, there's 3 tells. There's a little sound, a flare of white on yourself, and the stamina cost of the block is going to be greatly reduced. So let's see if I can land it. That's a normal block. And there's the perfect guard. Perfect guard. You can see how I'm getting almost no stamina cost as I do this. And it's making that sound. And again, the flare of white. It's pretty subtle. I do think they should maybe buff this to be a bit more obvious that you've successfully done it. But after you land that perfect block, you can go for the guard counter and deal significantly higher damage, as you can see. So there's more details of this you need to be aware of. When you successfully deflect using the deflecting tier to block an attack, you receive this big boost to the guard counter. The damage increase for the guard counter is roughly 20% on its own. But don't forget, there's an original talisman called the Curved Sword Talisman that also enhances your guard counter damage. This is also about a 20% increase, so together it's 40% or more increase to your guard counter damage. That's a pretty big deal on its own. On top of this, the duration of this buff from this tier is comically long. Where normally an amazing damage buff from a tier would be like 3 minutes, this buff lasts a ridiculous 5 minutes after use. That is so long that it's more than double the length of a fight in a boss fight, usually at least for me, so I always have it available at the relevant times. In my experience testing it with different bosses, humanoid enemies are obviously so much easier to punish with this. They're smaller, and it's very easy to see the exact moment of the attack because they're using a weapon that you can stare at and see when it's about to hit you. Compare that to, say, the Divine Beast, the Dancing Lion here, and the attacks are quite wide-reaching, where the hitbox kind of clips you when maybe you're on the side of it. This can be a good thing though, giving you an easy way to just kind of tap the block, and then hold it and do a normal block if it goes wrong. When things go right though and you actually land that perfect block, it is an incredibly effective punish. I think the skill required to run something like this is significantly lower than rolling the combos and the full attacks, and with the shorter punish windows on bosses in general in this DLC, a quick guard counter fits into that small punish window pretty damn well. Then with a suitable heavier weapon like the Black Seal Greathammer here, you're able to stagger out most targets in 1 or 2 counters, and I mean bosses too when I say that. Outside of a great hammer having great stagger value, there is another thing you can put in your wondrous physic, the Stone Barb Cracktear, which temporarily makes stance breaking so much easier. Combine the two and guard counter as well, and not much is going to be able to stand up to that. In particular though, the Black Steel Greathammer is unique. It comes with its own unique guard counter, as this description will explain. Guard counters cause a burst of power, which as you can see is this kind of holy light on the ground that pops after a delay. The damage is not insane, but it's going to add a few hundred to every guard counter, and that's not something I'm going to ignore. But further with this weapon, it's a top tier faith strength weapon in any case. You can also read in the description this: already blessed with an Erdtree incantation, more holy imbuement amplifies this effect, greatly increasing its power. So we can see in the stats under standard, and compared to the current sacred affinity, while we gain some physical to be in standard, we lose so much holy damage. And the unique effect of that is enhancing that holy damage even further. And for the Asher War in particular, we're using Cragblade, which dumps it into the ground, covering rocks, and that increases the stagger value and poise break potential of this weapon. So why not, since that's what we're doing? By running Faith, you can run things like the Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and Cleansers, no problem, or other holy incants. There's new ones that are great in the DLC, like Golden Arcs. So there's just many ways to run this, and it just feels so straightforward and smooth. This truly feels like one of the easiest things you could possibly run in the DLC. I'm not going to tell you that the damage is absolutely busted broken. With some of the top tier setups in the DLC, you could kill these bosses in seconds with perfect gameplay, but this just doesn't demand perfect gameplay. You can just walk around blocking and then guard countering, trying to time those startup block frames to get a better guard counter punish all the same. Also, it's not like you can't run a parry as normal if you want to use those. And in particular, I'd recommend carrying retaliation for the ideal version of that, because when you use it and hit nothing, it costs nothing to use, no FP. When you actually successfully parry a magic attack though, you get the actual carrying swords to fly back at the target. And between carrying retaliation and golden parry, which have the best frames outside of say using a buckler shield, I find the instant nature of it is just better. And parrying itself is incredibly effective against some of these bosses, again like the final boss, to be another thing that you can work in to counter the way these DLC bosses work. For other suggestions, if you're thinking about giving it a try, I'd recommend the Blade of Mercy. This raises your attack power, it's a new talisman after you land a critical hit. Since we're going to be breaking guards pretty consistently, we will be getting those, so why not take the extra AR? There's also the OG Great Shield talisman, boosting your guarding ability even further for your basic blocking, alongside the new Pearl Shield talisman that does the same thing for non-physical stuff if you're dealing with an elemental enemy. There are many ways you can enhance this and play it. Hell, you could just run the two-handed weapon, drop the shield and do what I've been saying, and guard counter with the weapon itself and go for a more damage-based basic build. But there you have it. That's my little overview of the Deflecting Hardtear and all the potential that it provides, the different build opportunities that exist in this DLC, making guard counters stronger than ever. If you guys have anything you'd like to add to this topic, anything I've missed in this little overview, let us know in the comments. But if you found the video useful, do drop a like, we'll appreciate it. But until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.